XZY Orb, hello. Gnarly, hello. How we going, guys? Welcome to the channel, XZY Orb. I'll call you Orb. Hello, rising from the ashes. Everyone's here early today. Normally I sit here for about half an hour. Mr. Ryan. How are we? Mr. Ryan 98. Do I know you, Mr. Ryan? How is everyone? Aha, I see. How's life? How's Mr. Ryan? Cool name, by the way. It's been a while, buddy. What's going on in the world? Are you happy? Oh, I'm glad to hear it, buddy. So you leveled things out a bit. Got on top of your game, hey? Slow and steady, bud. How'd you find the channel? Do you do some digging? Oh, I see. Tired, gnarly. Are the bumps manageable? Little speed bumps in the road. You gotta slow down, you know, to get over them. Doom scrolling. Fill me in, what's this doom scrolling thing? I've heard this a few times over the last week. Doom scrolling. I think I want some different music. It's nice, but I'm not feeling the deep vibe. This one's good. I realised I was talking to myself. I said I wanted to change the song. I wanted something with more of a spacious vibe. This is good. I like this one. So everyone's okay. Life's good. Ah, I see. That's what doom scrolling is. Scrolling to your own doom. Ah, so you're just... Hello, Michaela. Welcome back. So you're just scrolling through, and whatever comes up, you're just watching whatever comes up. So you have no intention. There's no direction. Probably a little bit loud. How are you, Michaela? Welcome back to the stream. Everyone's here early today. Normally I sit here for about half an hour, just don't do anything. I see, yeah, good. So you're just chilling out in the background, that's fine. That's the good thing about life. It's one of the things that we... It's easy to observe. Oh, is this with the ear? Are you still dealing with your ear, Michaela? it's quite easy to observe that in the modern world, people find it difficult to be observant, to rest, to stop. Not like rest, like go to sleep and lay down and go to sleep, but to just stop and be present with what's happening as an observer. It's quite rare to encounter that in the modern, at least in the West, depending on where you go, I suppose. But it's totally fine if you have no problems, and if there's nothing happening that you need help with, and you don't feel like you need to be doing something, there's nothing wrong with just sitting back and watching, observing, being present. So what's the plan, Michaela? Are you doing anything? Can you do anything about the pain? Have you had your ear checked? Well, I'm glad to hear it, Gnarly. It's a good anchor. It's a good way to keep yourself focused in the way you want yourself to be focused. Well, I first started streaming many years back. I had a channel on Twitch called The Tao of Gaming. And this would be 5 years ago, approximately. And I didn't do it for very long because I couldn't keep up with it. I was doing too much, and my throat, believe it or not, had a lot of problems with talking for hours and hours and hours on end, and I couldn't do it. So I didn't do it for very long. This time round, I think I set this channel up maybe about a year ago, close to that, and did it for a little while, a few weeks, I think, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, and then had a huge break. Wasn't ready to do it. So this time now, picking it up again, it hasn't been very long at all. About 2 weeks, I think. Oh, you've hurt yourself, Ryan, I see. Hope it's not too bad. Over-the-counter meds. You got checked yesterday, so it is a general ear infection, Michaela. Are you streamer Orb? Ah, I see. What sort of stuff do you do? What do you stream? Oh, I see. So you used to do that. Oh, cool. So you two are connected. Closely connected. Zorb. Oh, that's cool. Interesting streaming, isn't it? How we're all, or many more people are opening their lives up to viewership and connection. It's quite a new phenomenon. Well, I suppose it's not. Radio. It all started with radio, didn't it? But Now we're doing it more, with more connection, greater freedom. I think it's a really good thing, actually. The fact that you can go on Twitch and do a search for mental health stuff and see, people are engaging in it. You can make connections in that world. Fundamentally, very important if you're, let's just say, having mental health difficulties, to make those connections. Very often it's hard to do it in person, or your physical environment doesn't really facilitate close relationships. And so you can basically be anonymous, can't you, but still maintain connections. And obviously you don't have to be anonymous either. You can be as open as you want to be, but a very good way for people to bridge the gap between isolation and connection. You can be isolated while you connect if you want to be. So clearly I think it's a good thing. Sometimes you get total relief just from encountering somebody else who's experiencing what you're experiencing. Even more so when you encounter somebody else who's experienced already what you're experiencing and managed to find their way out of it. So that in and of itself is a tremendous resource to have, a really useful resource, really helpful. And then, if you can step into the realm of consciousness within that environment, you start looking at what you're going through and cultivating yourself throughout it, or through it. Oh, it's incredibly common. How do you find streaming? Orb? Z-Orb? What should I call you? Should I call you Orb or Z? Orb, okay. How do you find streaming? Do you find it's helped you in some way? Everybody has mental health. We have a physical health, we have a mental health, we have a spiritual health. Started doing shows in person, like a performance thing. So everybody has mental health. Literally every person on the planet has mental health. It's just that obviously there are varying degrees of security and insecurity, stability within mental health, just like there are. That's exactly the same with physical health and spiritual health. So I think it's becoming more and more recognized as what it is, which is a fundamental element of every single person's experience. And as it becomes more recognized in that way, then obviously it becomes more accepted and more mainstream for people to start taking care of their mental health and working through the challenges that it might bring occasionally, or constantly in some cases. You have mental bliss. Very often it boils down to a lack of understanding. whether it's a lack of understanding on the part of the person who's experiencing the difficulties, or a lack of understanding from the people around them, a lack of insight, a lack of connection, a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience. That tends to be the way, Ryan. You can go so far. You have a safety net built into your makeup, deep suffering. So, you can go so far in ignorance or pretending that everything's okay, or even just believing that everything's okay. You might think you're alright, but if there are things beneath the surface that you need to be seeing, eventually you'll be able to identify it because it becomes obvious to you. The hyper-reality, what do you mean by that? You're talking about the world, society? Energy. The hyper-reality is very realistic. Not quite grasping what that means. Into vision of psychics. So you're talking about getting too caught up in the psychic dimension? Is that what you're referring to? So it started to cause you problems after a while? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it can. It very much can. If you spend too much time in that space, you become unstable and you disconnect from humanity, human beings, and you disconnect from the true experience of reality. People often... Your mind contains everything, right? Meaning your life, you contain everything in life, so you can't deny any element of it, whether it's the physical or the non-physical. Some people who go too deep or very deep into the non-physical, and it's also part of the process to go very deeply into the non-physical dimension. You lose touch with the physical dimension and you disconnect from it, and it can become hard to maintain physicality, your body, your responsibilities, your relationships, the needs of your body, etc., etc. And then you have the other side of that, where people who are totally dominated by the material have no sense of a non-physical experience or existence and deny it totally. Essentially, what we're talking about here is the difficulty between science and religion, how religion is a totally subjective way or a totally subjective path, and science, on the other hand, is totally objective. And this is why we have a great difficulty in these two fields of consciousness communicating to each other, because they can't see each other very often. So, we have to come back to unity. That means total integration, total collaboration and cooperation of the non-physical and physical elements. Exactly. You are the unified field theory. You know how that's what we're seeking in theoretical physics? We're seeking that unified field theory that brings everything together. We don't realize that's us. That's what we are as consciousness manifest. We are that. But we look elsewhere for the proof. It's funny. It goes through various phases and various stages, the awakening. Sometimes it's overloading. Sometimes it feels like it's missing. But it's all part of the rhythm of life, the process of life. It's always fluctuating. It's always evolving. You never lose touch with it. You just stop looking at it for a while. It's like a heartbeat. If you could tune into your heart very deeply, you would see an expansion and a contraction, and then an expansion and a contraction. If you zoomed in to the inside of one of your veins in your body, every so often there would be a huge rush of blood as the heart pumps. It would rush, and then it would just very briefly slow down and then rush. And you, as a physical body, you're like a cell in the vein, witnessing the passing by of energy and the processes that have been happening in matter for billions upon billions of years. But a lot of people don't see it because they're not observant enough. They're still experiencing it, but they don't know what they're experiencing because they're not watching, they're not witnessing it. The balance comes down to so we've always been sharing this creation, obviously, but there's a difference. It's a fundamentally different experience when you know that that's what's happening. If you are conscious that that is what is occurring, you experience it differently. If there's 100 people walking along a path together and they're all holding hands, they're all in the same place, they're all walking in the same direction. But if most of those people have got their head down on the ground, they're going to be talking and thinking about things that they see on the floor, and they'll be very closely connected with everyone else who's looking at the floor, and they'll be able to talk about because they're all looking at the floor. But when some of us are looking at the floor and the whole environment around us and the sky, it's a different, fundamentally different experience, even though we're all still there. We're all still in the same place. But the thing is, obviously, the people who are looking with total clarity can see what's on the floor, but they can also see everything else. Whereas the people who are just looking at the floor, they can't see anything that's not on the floor. So you have to, that's what you're navigating in the modern era. More and more people are beginning to see more of what's going on. But it's definitely a minority, it's not a majority. They're trying to keep it stable. Trying to. Most of the time it's it's out of fear. Tends to be out of fear. People get very attached to what they've built on the floor. They are, more and more people are, thanks to the internet, thanks to the sharing of knowledge and coming into contact with true cultivators. One of the things it's important to remember about spiritual cultivation is that it's about peace. It's about the connection, making connection with peace, establishing peace, and then, establishing yourself in peace, and then maintaining that established peace. So it's a very helpful thing to know, because what it allows you to do is to filter through a lot of the spiritual chaos. There's a lot of chaos that comes with awakening. And so it's wise to focus on peace, get to know peace, establish yourself with that force, because that's love, which is at the heart of life itself. So if you go there, you get very, very well established in what is deeply, deeply true. And that peace, once you're established in peace, it doesn't matter how much chaos you get drawn into, or how much chaos you might descend into, you know the way home. And when you know the way home, it doesn't matter how far away you go, you can always return home. Because there's a lot of places to go, there's a lot of chaos to get caught up in, even in the so-called spiritual realms. Is it a problem to you, Ryan? Does it feel like a problem? Would you like to? Orb, would you like to come back? Then you most probably will. I know, imagine having to leave now. Imagine having to leave now and not get to see how it plays out over the next 5-10 years plus 5-10-15 years. Is it letting go, Ryan? Letting go of the intellect? Yeah, either way, or whichever way it goes, with regards to the whole system of control, etc., and the collapse and the awakening collectively, whichever way it goes, it's going to be fascinating to see. Which way will it tip? It tends to tip both ways at the same time, but it tips as people awaken, so too do other people descend into chaos. But to see it all happen, disclosure happening, who'd want to miss that? Techno spirituality. Interesting. Well, it's happening, isn't it? It's been happening for a while, but obviously it goes deeper. It evolves. it will enhance us in many ways. The difficult, or rather the thing to maintain awareness of, though, is the same thing that causes us to go to war. Kush Z, welcome. Welcome to the channel. What areas does spirituality hold? What do you mean by that? What areas? The thing to be aware of with regards to the development of technology and our evolution is, again, holding on to this, the same thing that sends human beings to war with each other. Because if we turn if we bring the technology into that, it will be horrendous, truly horrific. Interesting. Kush. You are a spirit. So your spirituality covers all of your experience. The fact that you're here, that you have been born into this body, that you're having this experience, that this experience in a body is limited, that it will die. Your consciousness, which is governing this experience, and everything in that is the domain of spirituality. That's the area that spirituality covers, which obviously contains all of life. But most people see themselves as individuals, and so their spirituality is quite limited to what I want in this life. What do I want from this life? My human being life, yeah? But that's a false identity. It's a shallow part of yourself. It's just, that's what you are on the surface. If you go very deep, you connect with something very, very, let's just use the word ancient. And so when you connect with that, your spirituality opens up and starts to include more elements of life, because you're also that consciousness. Yeah, you learn to let go of memory, Mr. Ryan, because it's untrustworthy. It's limited. It's a limited perspective. What's important to remember is each other. Here's where we tend to go wrong. Okay, so we have this shared consciousness together, you and I. We're all here having this experience together. If at any point in this experience, and we've all gone along making things, haven't we, in our life? We've developed views and opinions and knowledge, and we've built objects. We've materialized things with the technology we've built. If at any point I consider a creation that we've made to be more important than you, I have turned away from reality, and I'm engaging in a delusion. People in general, often as a collective, think their religion and their belief system is more important than the other human beings that they're sharing this life with, or the other life not necessarily just human beings. Or they think that their houses and their money and their possessions, these material illusions, they think that they hold more power and importance and value than the actual consciousness that created them in the first place. And that is a total, what word do I want to use? That's a total corruption of spirituality, the truth of spirituality. That is the very opposite. That is materiality at its core. To think that anything material is more important than the consciousness of life. And that's what we have to remember as we evolve our technology. Don't forget the humanity, the consciousness. Don't try and make this technology out to be God, because it's not. It's a grain of sand on the beach. It's ultimately meaningless in the face of reality. So that's, if you know that, and if you can hold that in your consciousness on a daily basis, you're good. You're in touch with life. You're on the same page. And it's easy then. But we don't live that way as a collective. At the heart of our society is a total corruption of that. At the heart of this modern economy is a total corruption of that principle. We look towards profit over people, which is a total corruption of that principle. So it's a total corruption of spiritual reality, which is why, well, that's why we kill each other and fall into immense despair. Exactly. I had this conversation a few times over the last couple of years. Something called a love-based economy. I've reached out to a couple of people who are, let's just say, a little bit more prolific in the public domain, you know, people that are a bit more celebrity and well known, and not many people really want to talk about it, but essentially the answer to the problem of the corruption of society is to turn ourselves collectively towards love. It's so simple. Towards love for each other. At no point can I put my desire for profit or land or ownership over anything whatsoever above you and your existence. Simple. I will turn all of my resources towards you and making sure you are happy. Your job is to do that for me. Your job is to do that for everyone else. It's so simple. We make sure people have got places to live and food to eat. Unconditionally, that their needs are met, because we love them. And we want them to be safe and to be secure and to be happy. Now, at no point can I put my own personal profit or desire, even if I want to make something, I can't do that if it's going to negatively impact you or the system. I can't turn away from my love for you for my own gratification. So I live in service and I turn my resources, all of them, towards you and your happiness. It's so simple. But that's the very opposite of the current economy that we have. It's greed-driven, profit-driven, ownership-driven, individual, me as an individual rising above everybody else. And so the knock-on effect of that is that I take more and more and more of your resources and I hoard them and you have less. And that's the model of the current model of economy that we're working for. What you end up there with is lots of individuals, little groups of individuals who have managed to climb to the top of the pyramid in their respective spheres, their countries or their society, their land, wherever they live. And so now those people end up in conflict with each other because those people at the top want to grab what the other person at the top has because they're in competition. And now we have war And since these people tend to dominate the decision making at the top of this current model of society, now they turn the whole society towards feeding their war, which is why we have militaries and why we invest billions and billions of dollars in weaponry. It's totally fucking insane, and it's obvious to see. But I don't know, people don't seem to want to have that conversation. It's a good question, Mr. Ryan. One way to do it is to recognize that everyone who is talking to you, so somebody comes to you with some gossip, to recognize that they're actually talking about themselves. So you can engage in the gossip because you know it's about the person that's talking to you. You know, you see the mirror. You know that that person is just reflecting their own consciousness. So don't initiate gossip. Don't inspire it. There's nothing wrong with responding to people. People bring gossip to you. Sometimes they just want to talk, you know. They're trying to connect in the best way they know how. So it's fine to engage with people. You tend to make the mistake, though, if you're the one inspiring gossip, because now you're talking about yourself, you know. And really, you shouldn't really have any problems with yourself on the level of gossip anyway. That's a good quote, Gnarly. So the present moment doesn't experience time. It's timeless. So it doesn't hold on to anything. There is no past. The present moment can't hold on to the past. It literally can't hold on to the past. So if you're on the same page as the present moment, you'll find that you don't hold on to the past as much either, which people experience as like a loss of memory. Some people get worried about that. Don't worry, when you get old enough, you lose it all anyway. So when you say you started to align with truth, Gnarly, how did you do that? What change did you make? Are you talking about telling the truth? As in speaking the truth? I see. So verbal truth, verbally speaking the truth. You have to be prepared to be alone to live like that. That's, if you live that way, that's the opposite of people pleasing. when it comes to your interactions with other people. Ah, I see. A deeper level. Ah, now you're talking about delusions, yeah. Delusions that you harbour internally, that's lying to yourself. Or it's a delusion if you believe it. If you see the lie, it's not a delusion. You're seeing the ego's deception. As long as you don't fall into it, you'll be fine. It's the good thing about presence. Presence has no deception. The present moment is not deceptive. It's totally sincere. It can't deceive you. Only your psychology can deceive you. Your perceptions can deceive you. Well, actually, perception is not deceptive, but the self that arises from perception is the lie. The ego. That is the lie. But perception is not a lie. Perception is also part of the present moment. The present moment perceives itself to be happening as it's happening right now. But then views arise from that within myself. That's the lie. Conceptual reality is another way to see it, I suppose. Another way to explain it. So if you overcome the conceptual element of your consciousness, all you have is truth. That's all that's left. And that's what mindfulness is for. Mindfulness practice. That's why the spiritual path is about truth. It's funny too, because a lot of people think there's no such thing as a truth. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it's one of the common sticking points a lot of people get stuck on, that there is no truth, that nobody knows the truth, or that everybody has their own truth. Everybody has their own interpretation of the truth. Or some people don't have any interpretation of the truth, and what they have is the truth, the one truth, the absolute truth, which is objective. Everyone can see that, and if you look at that truth, you will be looking at the same truth that he's looking at when he looks at that truth. That's what enlightenment is. You come back to the same one. So yeah, to be getting over deception, one's own lies, one's own inability to be present, that's a great place to be. Any truth that's defined is not the truth. That's a definition of the truth. There are lots of different definitions of the truth, none of which are actually true. None of which are actually the truth. But truth is not a definition. This body, right here, right now, having this experience communicating to you is not. It's objective. This experience is happening. Hello. You're here too. It's happening. It's undeniable. It's objective. Now, what you think this experience is, how you perceive me, what you think about why I'm doing what I'm doing, all of that's just subjective, and it's all open interpretation. It's open to interpretation. None of that is the truth. but the experience itself is undeniably occurring. So that's it. That's the absolute truth. Relative truth is what you think about it. The whys and the hows, which is actually really more along the lines of the whys, the why. Why are we doing this? You know, the theoretical stuff, that's all subjective and relative to you and your conditioning. But the actual experience itself, which is life doing this everywhere, look around. Life everywhere, living, unfolding, evolving. That's objective. It's happening. Your interpretation of that, or even your perspective, that's relative to you. Right now, from this perspective, I'll just use normal language. I am sitting in this room, looking from my point of view, which you don't share. You're over there, I don't know, in a different country, in a different room. That's your relative perspective. But we're both here in the present moment. That's not relative, that's absolutely true. Undeniably true. And so here you have the difference between relative truth and absolute truth. A lot of people can't see the absolute truth. They just get stuck in the relative perspective. That's the domain of the ego. The ego with a name and a history and a belief system, all of that's just relative to you. That is going to die. When that body drops, so does that relative perspective, obviously, because you're not looking through the body anymore. So the key, and this brings us back towards this whole overcoming the lies, the deceptions, not deceiving ourselves. That means not believing our relative point of view to be the truth, because that is a lie. But from an absolute, from the level of absolute, we're in this together. It's as simple as that. It's happening for everyone at the same time. That's the same meaning, Gnarly. Yeah, that's right. That's the hint in that first passage from the Tao Te Ching. That's what that means. Another way that I talk about it sometimes is that it's not conceptual. Reality is not conceptual. And fair enough, it's one of the fundamental difficulties that we face when it comes to communicating about truth. Trying to explain it or to describe it when it can't be done ultimately. If you say nothing, a lot of people don't know where to turn. My teacher said that to me once. He said, "Where would you be if I hadn't said a word?" When we first met, I said I'd be fucked, obviously. So, to lay a bit of a conceptual groundwork to give our brains something to connect up with while we learn to practice, to transcend relative perspective, to transcend ego. There's nothing wrong with it, but remember, it's not in the words. It's not in the concepts. Let's find a song, shall we? You're in the UK, Gnarly, yeah? What's the consciousness like of the general population around you? Or from what you observe, is it still rough? Is it still aggressive? As aggressive as it was when I was there? Is it still angry? To gauge that means, when you walk down the high street or you go to the shopping centre, yeah, what do you sense? If you go for a coffee or just, walking down the street, what's the general aura like? Yeah, it's a funny thing about the UK, that, isn't it? It's a very aggressive energy. It's a very dominant, egocentric, aggressive personality. Well, they're considered to be a leading world power or something like that. So it's at the height of the chaos in general. It's one of the countries that's scrambling to get to the top the most. Same like the country I live in, Australia, it's the same. In general, it's the same. Again, it's very generalized because there's always a exception to the rule. It's very hard to cultivate peace in certain environments. It's like the environment is constructed in a realm that peace isn't allowed to enter. If peace enters into that place, the environment, the kinds of things that are inhabiting that environment would collapse. So peace is kept out of a lot of environments for that reason. Sad, really, isn't it? But obviously you can step out of it. Oh, I see. Forge it yourself, Gnarly. It's what you do, isn't it? When you need peace, sometimes you gotta make it. So you're doing much better now, Ryan. It sounds like you've gone full circle. And now you're wiser and more mature. Now you're a big boy. That's called growing up spiritually. You'd be amazed how many people are still teenagers. Like young teenagers too. They're still living with a very immature level of consciousness. A lot of adults in the modern world, they still think like a teenager. A lot of people get stuck in their teenage years, yeah. But you can grow beyond that if you're prepared to step out of your comfort zone and allow yourself to be challenged, to face reality. You do what you can. You try to do what you need to, but you always do what you can. If you can't do it, you can't do it. Get sore, eh, gnarly? Very sore. It's a good kind of pain though, isn't it? The pain of growth. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well done. Leg day's everyone's favourite, isn't it? Inflict some helpful pain on yourself, Ashes. Some evolutionary pain. Sometimes just doing a really good stretch is helpful because you're still training physically. You know, you're still opening your body up. It gives you a chance to be present, be mindful. Stretching keeps you nice and loose, nice and limber. And technically, you know, you're still training. Or you can do a little bit of cardio. Qigong's always a good one. Tapping into the energy of the present moment. The energy of mind. Same to you, Gnarly. Have a good one. Stay safe. Stay sane. See you next time. I'll be back next week, okay? This is my last night streaming for a bit, I think, because my kids are here for a week tomorrow. So, we'll see how we go. If I can get one in through the week, I will, but otherwise I'll see you in a week or so. See you later, man. Yeah, there's no public classes at the moment. One of my students who's been with me for a couple of years has just given us a gym. He's just sold his house and moved to a new house, and he's set us up basically a dojo there, a private dojo, and he's said he's happy for me to use it to run classes, but I'm going to take my time with it because things are evolving, things are different, and we'll see how we go. It may start up again, it may happen again, but I do more private stuff now. So, I train people at their own home. Yeah, so we'll sit with that for a little while. We're not doing any online classes yet. That could be something that we look into in the future. I do online counseling, private counseling with people, talking to them, like in video chats. So are you going okay with your path now, Ryan? Are you clear on what you're doing and where you want to be going? Are you more clear? Are you still figuring things out? Rising from the ashes, good night. Thank you for checking in. See you again soon. Sleep well. Ah, I see. We can always do stuff we can always do stuff online if you want to. You're welcome to come over for a little bit too. But yeah, we could always catch up online if you want. Do it from a distance. Whether that's physical stuff, we can do physical training online, or you know, the mental stuff as well. What sort of stuff do you want to do? Are you talking about the physical stuff? Well, yeah, we can do all of it online. Are you happy where you are? Uh-huh, I see. Yeah, if you come over for a holiday, we can catch up for sure. Are you happy there, or are you wanting to get away? The thought that you shouldn't have left here, WA. So what's inspiring that thought, do you think? What's making you think that? And what about those situations? Oh, I see. It's all part of growing, my man. Learning. That's the journey. Loving and letting go. It's unstoppable. Inescapable. Well, it's wise to get very clear on that now, my friend, because that's a hard hell to get out of when you're in it. If you go into it, if you go down that road, with a bit of an instinct that you're not going to want to be there, well, you've got to look at why you're going there if it's not what you want. Sometimes you have to go to places you don't want. Sometimes in life that's necessary, and sometimes you do it for other people. But you have to know that if it's a hell for you, you're going to suffer while you're in there. You need to be careful of that, because everyone has their limits as to how much hell they can handle. So that's something I would be sitting with very deeply, and be very honest with yourself about it. Be very cautious of going into those environments. The good thing about those deep lessons, they don't go anywhere. If you take time out to reflect and contemplate these decisions, the opportunity isn't going anywhere. It'll still be there in a month after you've meditated and contemplated on the problem, to have gotten to a deeper insight. So you're not under any pressure to make your mind up quickly, but you do need, well, you don't need to, but it's wise to be honest about whether or not you really want to go there. It's a hell if you get yourself immersed into that environment and you hate it and you can't leave. It becomes a hell. It'll be a heaven if you really like it and you really love it. But when it comes to having kids with someone and getting a house, like a mortgage with someone, it's a strong commitment, very strong commitment, and it's going to have certain things you do have quite drastic consequences on the way that your life unfolds. Having kids is one of them. If you have kids and you maintain the relationship, okay, well now you're a dad, a proper dad raising kids. If you have kids and it doesn't work out, well now you're a single dad raising kids by yourself, or you don't see your kids, and that's another hell. Potentially, obviously it all depends on your perspective. But what I'm getting at is, You want to be clear on what you want, because raising children is exceptionally demanding, and so is having a mortgage, and it's exceptionally confining. Once you make those commitments, your behavior, your actions, your thoughts from that moment on tend to have to be very, very tightly maintained in order to keep the situation afloat. This is a little bit generalized because life's very dynamic. But to sit here and say that having kids and buying a house doesn't quite sit well, what's that? What does that mean to you? And are you going to ignore that feeling, or are you going to get to the bottom of it? Why exactly doesn't it sit well? Are you just scared? Are you just nervous? Or is there a deeper feeling of unhappiness in there? You're not really happy where you are and you don't want to be tied into it. You want to be free. Free to have relationships with other people, or just whatever, you know. It could be a number of things. So it's wise to get to the bottom of those things, so that there's no subtle hells waiting for you round the corner, and that you've got a very clear vision on what's coming, at least as best as you can see, you know, as much clarity as possible. Because you go further on down into that road, and you have kids, and you get a house, and you're in a relationship, and 4 years in, you realize you're in hell, and you think, oh, that's what that feeling was 4 years ago. And you realize back then you knew. But there's no right or wrong in it. Sometimes you have to descend into hell to appreciate the reality of hell. Misery, we're talking about. Despair. And trying to avoid that and cultivate the opposite. So wisdom is the answer. Be wise. Be honest. What do you really want? And then what are you going to do? Because you will always experience the consequences of your actions or your inactions. That's karma. It's inescapable. So if you're generating wisdom, your karma is going to be wise karma. The result of your karma will be wise results. That's not a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. But if your karma is hiding, unwise, not deep, if it's shallow, then that's the karma. If your action and the way you're thinking now and the way you're approaching these problems is shallow and not with much insight and not with much honesty, not with much clarity, then that's the karma that generates. So that's where you end up. You end up reaping those rewards. They are rewards. That's what you're given because of your own action, etc., etc. It's really quite simple, isn't it? Govern yourself with wisdom now, and everything is taken care of. You don't know what the future holds. No one does. But I can guarantee you right now, how to put this? having kids, okay, it's okay to have a little bit of fear, that's normal. But there's multiple kinds of experiences of that. One is, I'm a bit nervous about having kids, but I really, really want them. And I love this person, and I want to have children with that person, and I want to spend many, many, many years of my life with that person. And I want to raise children with that person, and I want to share that experience. But I'm a little bit scared, but I really want to do it, so I'm going to do it. That's one perspective, mindset, whatever you want to call it, point of view. The other point is, I'm not really happy in my situation. I'm not really happy with the idea of being tied down into a relationship with this person and having children and getting a mortgage, because the idea of being tied down doesn't sit well with me. But then you go and do it anyway. That's different. You're still going to have kids. You're still going to be with the same person. You're still going to end up raising children with them. But you don't want to be there. And you weren't honest with yourself at the time. That's different. So all I'm trying to get at here is, I'm not trying to say that it sounds like you're not happy or anything, because I don't know. I have no idea what you're experiencing. But it's for you to be wise enough to make up your own mind, isn't it? And to see these, to approach your decisions, to approach your actions. You said the idea of having kids and getting a mortgage doesn't sit well with you. Why? What doesn't sit well exactly? Do you think you're not going to be a good dad? Do you think you're going to struggle to raise your children? What is it? Are you going to struggle with the responsibility? Are you going to struggle with being tied to a person in a relationship and a house, a property with a mortgage? A lot of these things you can work on, and perhaps they're just normal fears and anxieties that most people experience. But you also talked to me a little bit before about having thoughts that you shouldn't have left. What's that? Because that's where this conversation started. You said you were having thoughts about occasionally thinking that you shouldn't have left the training environment. And then you started talking about this problem. So what's going on here really is the question. Are you regretting not going deeper into the training? Are you really unhappy in your life? I don't know. It's like, a lot of this is a bit like fishing, you know, based off of the information you've given to me. It's like putting out a line into the water. I might put out several lines, and it's up to you whether or not you want to nibble at anything. Is it resonating with you or not? For you to understand yourself better, I suppose, just reflecting back at you. But it's not up to me to tell you what's going on. That's for you to find. That's for you to see. And it all comes down to total honesty with yourself. I'm out of tea. That's an emergency. I'm English. We can't have it. It's not allowed. It's literally against the law. Look it up. An Englishman cannot go for more than an hour. Okay, 10 minutes without tea. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to put the 10-minute break, the be right back screen on. And I think I'll make another cup of tea, and then I'll come and sit here for another maybe half an hour or so before we finish up. And yeah, feel free to stick around, You can keep going into this if you want, Ryan. I don't know if you're going to be here or not. It's up to you. Otherwise, call back in at some point in the future. Give me a message on the Discord. I don't know if you've still got my mobile number. You can always have a chat over the phone. That's if you want to, if you feel like you need some support. But anyway, I'll be back in about 10 minutes. is calm. Until I speak. Okay, so the training, what kind of training are you talking about? Because depending on what kind of training you want to do, that's going to let you know whether or not you want to be having kids right now and getting a mortgage. Just depends what kind of training you want to do. You can train anywhere, at any time, in any circumstance, but you can't do all kinds of training anywhere in all circumstances. Well, you can do that. You can do that basically anywhere if you've got the motivation to do it. Learning about your emotions, well, you can do that anywhere. Learning about your psychology, you can do that anywhere. Completing first year, you can do that anywhere. If you've got the motivation to train yourself, or I can train you online. You can train yourself and I can grade you online. Well, you can do that, can't you? You can do that for sure. You do whatever you want. The only thing that's really coming up, Ryan, is, you've brought up this idea of having kids and getting a mortgage and being in a relationship. Sometimes there's things you want to do before you have kids and you get a mortgage and you settle into that responsibility. So it's wise to know if what you want to do is going in a different direction. Obviously, you can do anything you want, But when you have kids and you've got a mortgage, that's going to limit what you can do. Obviously, you can't just walk away from that, or you could, but then you're going to deal with the pain and the difficulty of doing that. So if you need more time to do your thing, to do your own thing, obviously you want to be careful, about making too many commitments and responsibilities at this stage. Otherwise you'll be torn, and you'll probably end up living with a bit of regret, because you go and had kids and get a mortgage, and now you're not able to do those other things that you really wanted to do. So yeah, it's up to you. Obviously you can do whatever you want. So you just take some time, mate. Take some time to reflect, contemplate your options, and be honest with yourself. Experiment a bit. Sounds like it could be a good idea, buddy. Anything you want to do with me, anything more formal and more regular and more committed, if you think you're ready for it and you want to go into it, just reach out. We can organise something for you. It's up to you if you feel like that's going to be beneficial to you, or you just want some support. You know what it's like talking to me. I love this stuff. I love to get to the truth, and I love to help ease concerns and anxieties, which is the same as getting to the truth, and to help people cultivate the skill of relaxation and awareness and discipline around that, discipline around awareness and cultivation of peace. So if you want to get into that, you feel like you want some support, just let me know. We can organise it for you. Otherwise, just check in whenever you feel like it, occasionally, if you've got questions or problems. So that's what you get immersed in these types of confrontations, because that's what this is. It's a confrontation. You are coming to confront your own consciousness and what's going on with yourself. That's all this is. We're just bringing ourself into focus, and that's what brings the clarity. So the more you do that, the more clarity you gain, which means the more you know yourself. And so, with somebody like me, if you set up a formal training arrangement, then we do this regularly. We sit down and we go into it together until you've had enough, until you get to where you want to be, or until you start doing it for yourself deeply. Yeah, you got the option, man. I know you, I like you, I know you're a good guy. I know your heart is sincere enough. last time you were with me, it was a good introduction for you, and it was to get you out of a situation that you were really unhappy in. But it only gave you a little taste, plus I was very different back then. I've evolved infinitely since then. My methods have evolved, my own mastery has evolved, and so we've both matured. So if you want to get back into a little bit, I'd recommend that we do it online first and see how you go with it. And if you then want to come over and do some more face-to-face stuff, then obviously you'll be able to do that, but there's nothing wrong with getting into it in the meantime. We can connect up online, in private, you know, it doesn't have to be on Twitch and stuff like that. You're welcome to jump in and we can do this in public too. But, you know, you tend to go a bit deeper when you can go into the depths of your own issues in private. And so, yeah, we can get into it if you want. If you want to, send me a message on Discord. Look wherever you're watching this, look down somewhere. There's a link to a Discord there. I don't know if you're already in there, are you? Did you already jump in the Discord? Somebody called Ryan just signed up, I think. Is that you? Yeah, okay. Mr. Ryan, yeah, that is you. Yeah, just send me a message in there, buddy, because we can do all of the video talks and stuff through there. Let me know what your schedule's like. How often you want to chat. Do you want to do once a week? You want to do once a fortnight? And then we'll get into it. We'll give you a little bit of structure around the discipline. And from there, we'll take it from there. Come up with something that's affordable for you, alright? And that is going to help me facilitate me being able to do it with you in a more formal kind of time management situation. And we'll go from there, bud. Alright, sleep on it, okay, mate? I'm going to call it there for the stream. I think I've had enough for the night. Sleep on it, see how you go when you're ready, whenever, over the next few days or something. Send me a message on Discord and we'll come up with a plan. Have a think about what you want to do. Have a think about, do you want to catch up once a week, once a fortnight, once a month? And what exactly do you want to go into? And what are your objectives, okay? Don't tell me now. Go away and have a think about that. And then we'll explore that together. Sound good? Alright, rock and roll. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon, Ryan. Anyone else still around, thank you for watching. And yeah, feel free to check in the next stream whenever that happens. Goodbye for now.